Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast, part of the Bet Rivers Network, on what is a special week and always one of the real fun events. Whether you like to wager on it, whether you're just a bracket player, I mean, everybody's pretty much a bracket player. That's the way it works. But whatever your participation may be, die hard, who's got his ticket for San Diego, uh, or you're an LIU or a Hofstra fan or a Siena fan, or you went to Villanova or whatever it may be, you have your little interest in the tournament, and that's what this is about, especially for the first 2 days. When you realize how much of the tournament that you play, in the first 4 days of the tournament, you play 48 games in 4 days. And 32 on Thursday and Friday, and then 16 on Saturday and Sunday, and you pretty much have played almost the entire tournament. That's it. That is your tournament. That is your NCAA tournament, where it goes from game to game, and it's different now. It's set up differently, using more than one network. The whole process that went in when CBS decided to share it years ago. I told you that I thought St. John's would be Friday night at 7. They're Friday night at 7:10 on CBS, which didn't take a genius to figure that out. That they were going to be up for the New York audience Friday night. For a lot of people, that's their first foray into the tournament. Their work week's over. They're out with their buddies at a bar, or they're home and they got a group over or whatever. Those that are just praying that St. John's gets back east and gets to the regional, where they would most likely meet mighty Duke in the dream matchup. Okay. And I'm going to tell you something. Duke's banged up. They have a limited roster to begin with in terms of numbers. They got a center who's maybe for the tournament. Their point guard's out for the tournament. They have a great player, and their culture and their coaching and everything else is top of the line. But they're vulnerable. They are. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk today, and I want to get to some things here on the tournament. I won't give you predictions till Wednesday. I'll give you some basketball, and then I'm burying the league because I got a couple of things I want to get to in football. Off the fields trade and everything today, and they did dump them. But remember where they sent them. When somebody that good comes for something, they see something. Now, we didn't see it in Fields last year. In a terribly coached team with a terribly constructed offense with no talent, we saw him just be as bad a passer as the league has seen in a long time. We know he can run. Maybe that's their idea. If Mahomes isn't ready, they're going to run the ball. Who knows? Remember, they're going from a kindergarten offense to graduate school in the Ivy League with Andy Reid. So it's a whole different set of encyclopedias. Now, a lot of talk is about the Big East being abused, and the Big East likes to think that way. And St. John's being abused. You know what? They weren't. Now, did I think they earned a 4? Yes, but the difference between a 4 and a 5, so what? Flip-flop opponents in the first round, and it's still Kansas in the second round. Who cares? If you're moving from the 4 to the 5 line and Kansas from the 4 to the 5 line and St. Joe's from the 5 to the 4 line, that's it. There's no other changes. They still see the same team next week. So it's not worth getting upset about. And remember this, as I told you for months, there was not going to be any upward mobility in the Big East this year. It was a bad league. UConn, who they beat 2 out of 3 times, lost to Marquette the last week of the season. And Marquette had a terrible year. Didn't make the league look good. They only have 3 teams in the tournament this year. There are leagues that have 10. The Big 12 was so much better than these other leagues and then the Big 10. But the Big 12 SEC was down, but the Big East was way down. And some of those teams are struggling because they don't have the money to buy players. And that's where this whole thing starts and finishes now. It's good to have coaches who are great like Patino, but you gotta get into players. St. John's spent a lot of Rapoli's money on players this year. Now, is San Diego fun? No. Did it break a lot of guys' dreams? It's not an easy trek. It's a terrible place to get to. You'd have to leave Thursday because the game's gonna be 4 o'clock on Friday, California time. It's not a good situation. You're better off waiting, say a prayer during this Lenten season, and hope that St. John's gets through that second game. They'll get through the first game. Get through the second game, which is not, I mean, listen, it's Kansas. It's a real team with real players. St. John's not gonna have a big physical advantage over Kansas. Kansas got a player who a lot of people think now he's had a weird year, but a lot of people think is the best talent that they've seen in a college body in 10 years. He's had a weird year. They were blaming it on the agent. He's really messed the team up, but I like St. John's chances. St. John's is playing name teams. I made this point as soon as this thing jumped out of me. I made it the first thing I came on yesterday. All the coaches who won championships, including the only guys with multiple titles, are all in the same bracket. We know that. Obviously, everybody's into that. Okay. Plus, that bracket's strong. Those are really good teams. Well, good. You got to beat good teams to get to the Final Four. You should have to. And would this year be a bitter disappointment if they lose in the second round? Bitter. As bad, if not worse, than last year. Because last year you could at least sink your teeth on what happened in the Big East because it hadn't happened in so long. Now, that's been there, done that. Now it's about playing deep into this tournament. St. John's is a 4 seed. They're a legitimate 4 seed. They're on the 5 line. Nothing to make a big deal about. But they are right now playing like a top 10 team. That is true. The team I watched last week in person at the Garden was a top 10 team. Does that mean they're not gonna go in and lay bricks in the second game? We know they can do it. We know they can get beat off the dribble. We know they can, hit a bunch of shoot blanks. We've seen it before. So they're not automatic. Very few teams are. Are there a couple teams that are automatic into the Sweet 16? Yeah. Is Duke automatic into the Sweet 16? I'd be shocked. Is Arizona, automatic into the Sweet 16? I'd be shocked. Is Michigan automatic into the Sweet 16? I'd be shocked. Is Houston? Ditto. And then watch Houston because they're going to be playing in Houston. That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. Maybe Houston and Florida tangle again with a different outcome this time. Now, St. John's is playing really well. I wanted to line up the teams that they were most likely going to go against and see if I really hated any of the matchups. There are teams I wouldn't like them against. Arkansas would be one. Again, obviously, teams like Michigan and Arizona, because of their size, it negates what St. John's does. And especially if you're those teams and you have a ball handler, then you take away the press, you take away the offensive rebounding, and all of a sudden St. John's has got to make shots against good defensive teams with great length. Duke is right now a 6-man team without its point guard. That makes them extremely vulnerable to St. John's 3-headed forward monster, their defensive prowess, their traps, their conditioning, and everything else. They can wear Duke down. They can wear Duke down. Do I think Duke will get in foul trouble? That's asking a lot. Okay, can Boozer get put in foul trouble in this game? That's asking a lot. But their injuries hurt them. Michigan's injury to LJ Carson has seemed to cripple them. Here's a backup point guard who's playing 18 minutes, scoring 8 points, had a good defined role. They haven't played well since he left. How big a deal is that? I'm not sure. But I wanna see them play well, and they haven't. See, what I like about St. John's, I've watched them play well 3 straight days, play really well. The defense they played against Providence, the defense they played against UConn in the first half, you can't play better defense than that. The defense they played against Providence was the best defense I saw any team play this year, with maybe the exception of one game I watched Houston. Um, I know that St. John's got a lot of following now. They got fans, and sometimes St. John, you gotta understand St. John's a little bit. And I'm not saying you don't, but just in case you don't, okay? St. John's is a commuter school. Most of the kids who go to school there work. Okay? It's not a bunch of kids whose mom and pops are paying for their schools and the kids can sit home and, light a bonfire at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. These kids are going to class and going to a job. A lot of them. A lot of them. That's what I did when I went there. I went to work every day because I had to. I had to support myself. I had no choice. Those kids, a lot of them have no choice, and it makes them better people doing that. But they don't have time to go off to San Diego. Their alumni base is in, like, Kansas. Kansas is gonna have a Kansas travels like a Kentucky travels, right? There are certain schools that just they're bringing Iowa's bringing people. Kansas is bringing people. Nebraska is bringing people. Duke's bringing people, okay? Duke has fans everywhere anyway. Bottom line is that's gonna be a Kansas crowd on the weekend. You could take that to the bank right now. There'll be some well-heeled St. John's guys there. Most of them know Patino and Rapoli, but they'll be out there, but that's might not be 1,000 people. So they're not gonna have the house that day, okay. I tell you right now, they're not gonna have the house back here in DC if they play Duke. It's not like playing at Madison Square Garden now. It's gonna be a little different. Have to do it on the road, which is okay. They're capable of doing it. This team is capable of getting a run going. That's what you wanted them to come into the tournament and do, and Patino did that. He did a masterful job with this team this year. The only kid he never figured out and never got to ring the bell on was Jackson. He's still yinging and yanging him, trying to get a couple of minutes offense out of him before he drives him absolutely insane by this is the same thing all the time. Jackson will come in, he'll get a break and make a dunk, or he'll hit a three, or he'll hit a shot. He'll make a nice play. He'll make an athletic play. He'll skywalk to the basket. Okay. He's a very good offensive player. He's not a point guard, obviously, but really the point guard on this team is Mitchell. Then he'll get beat off the dribble or not chase the 3 shot in the corner. Then he won't box out. Then he'll make a terrible pass that'll lead to a dunk the other way, and by the time that pass hits the guy's hands, Patino's got a guy off the bench already on his way to the scorer's table, and that's the end of him for a while, or some nights for good. He might get a reprieve in the second half and see if he can stay on the floor. The question always is with Jackson, how many minutes he's gonna stay on the floor, but Shannon has stepped up. That's critical. Sellers is so important because those 2 guys can make outside shots in the half court. You wanna see them get better looks because it's critical because other teams are better at getting good 3 looks than St. John's is. St. John's is not good in the half court. They score on the break, they score off the turnover, and they score off the offensive rebound. And then Zuby sometimes will get a little thing going. Zuby can look really bad offensively, and he can look really sweet offensively. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens, especially against Kansas. Because remember, he left Kansas, but that's a long time ago, and he left Kansas because of Embiid. And Embiid's different player than Zuby. I mean, Embiid, when he's healthy, is a guy who can score 50 points in the NBA. He's a big time talent. That's no big deal that that Embiid was over him. I mean, that happens. And he came and he found a home and had one of the great careers in the history of St. John's, which is about him and about Pitino developing him. He did a great job that way. But this team has gotten better. And it's not consistent to where you'd be really thinking it's consistent, consistent, consistent. It never will be that. But it has a lot better nights now than weaker nights. And the defense has gotten really good for the most part. And the size and the prowess of the three forwards. And don't discount what Mitchell brings. His defense is unbelievable. His length, his ability to handle the ball on the open floor. And if he can get to the basket and get to the front of the rim, well, then he can be an offensive force because otherwise he's never going to make it. I don't think he's made a three this year. I don't know how many he's taken, maybe 20. I didn't look it up. If you looked it up, I bet you he's over 20 or something. I'll look it up tonight. I think I bet you he's 0 for whatever it is. I don't think I saw him hit one all year. He doesn't make free throws. So you got to get him out of the game. You got to play offense, defense in the last couple of minutes of a tight game because they're going to foul him. I mean, I would foul him. I'd foul him if I needed the ball back, even if it was in the bonus where it's 2 shots. I'd still foul him. He's not going to make 2. He might make none. I'm going to definitely get a 1 for 2 at best. He doesn't shoot. If he shot the ball well, he would be a top 10 pick for the draft this year. That's how good his NBA body is, but he doesn't shoot the ball. But they are playing really well right now. They're playing better than UConn's playing now. I do not like some of the effort things I saw from UConn. I don't like some of the things I saw from UConn. Some of the real weaknesses have really reared their head in the last couple of weeks. St. John's has not had that happen since the disaster in Connecticut. Remember, St. John's record since January is great. But remember, they didn't win any impressive games in the non-conference this year. That's why they are 4. And people complaining about UConn and them being in the same bracket. Hey, they can't keep teams that are lines apart away from each other. There's nothing they can do. You got 10 teams from one conference. There's nothing you can do anymore. The bottom line is if you've got a 2 and a 5, that's how they look at it. They don't look at it as 2 title contenders, St. John's and UConn. They look like a Big East fan might. They look at it as a 2 and a 5. And sorry, we can't keep the 2 and a 5 away from each other past the conference final. That's the best we can do. And that's us doing a lot. They can't even guarantee that all the time anymore when you have that many teams. Now, this year, St. John's, it would have been bad if they put those guys together before that, considering they only had 3 teams from the conference in the tournament. What I notice about this is I have 6 teams that I think can win it all. And I don't have St. John's and UConn in there. I think St. John's can get to a Final Four. I don't think they'll win the whole thing because I think the size and the prowess and the strengths of the other teams they'll probably see there will overwhelm them. I see 6 teams. I have to include Duke despite the injury. Arizona and Michigan. Houston and Iowa State and Florida. That's the 6. Now, I would put St. John's and UConn in that second tier. And I'll say this about the second tier. There are 5 seeds like St. John's, like Arkansas, which is a 4. St. John's a 5. Vandy's a very good 5. Even Wisconsin's a good 5. They have played sneaky good on both ends of the floor since the end of January. If you look at their games since then, They have been, they lost to Michigan on a last second shot. They won at Michigan. They have had huge wins this year. They had 3 of the biggest wins of the whole season. They are a dangerous team. So is Arkansas because they have in the point guard as good a player right now as there is playing in the country. He's playing as well as anybody in the country right now, and he'll be a top 5 pick. And he is an incredible player. He had 37, then he had 30 in the last 2 games. And Arkansas has a lot of talent. They were 16 of 25 from 3, 16 of 25 in the SEC final against Vandy. How are you gonna beat that? When they can run up down the floor, and they can play a foot above the rim, and they make 16 to 25 threes? So there are a lot of teams on the 4 line, on the 5 line that are as good as teams on the 2 line this year in that second tier. And those teams could make a big run. I think this year, the championship I think Arizona I'll be fascinated by the Arkansas-Arizona game if it happens, because do not discount Wisconsin could beat Arizona on a big shooting day, because they can have days where they shoot the lights out. That'll be a really good second-round game, Wisconsin. I think they'll beat High Point. I know everyone's picking High Point. I'm not buying that. All right. And Arkansas's playing Hawaii, which is a good team, but Arkansas should win that game. And Arkansas-Wisconsin could be a classic. And Wisconsin would have a lot of trouble with Arizona. Arkansas on its best day could give Arizona some trouble. But Arizona this year, and listen, they've come in the tournament in recent years and flopped a lot. This year, they have the softest bracket. They have beat a lot of good teams. They have lost only 2 games on the season. They have size, they have balance, they have defense, they have guard play, they have everything that you need to win. They will be a very, very tough team to oust. And I'm not buying this Purdue resurgence. I know Purdue just won the Big Ten title in the tournament. They had been playing terribly before that. I'm not the biggest Purdue fan. A lot of people are on the Purdue bandwagon. I've seen them picked a lot for the Final Four the last couple of since last night. I don't see that from Purdue. I do think that side of the bracket's very weak. Very weak. But I think Arizona has a really great shot. I think they have only one tough game to get to the Final Four. But back to St. John's, and then we'll get to everything as far as Final Four picks and everything Wednesday night, key games I like, upsets, etc. On Wednesday afternoon. I think St. John's can get to the Final Four. I think the team that has the easiest trip to the Final Four of the big teams is absolutely Arizona. Absolutely Arizona. And I think I think St. John's has a better chance to get to the Final Four than UConn does. I think UConn will have a very tough game with Michigan State. And I'll tell you this, on their best day, I don't know if you've seen UCLA, which is well coached. UCLA is not bad. They're a little banged up right now, but do not be shocked if they give UConn a terrific second-round matchup. That would not surprise me even a little. They got players, UCLA. They're a good team. They lost to Purdue in the Big Ten. They had the disadvantage of having to come across the country to play all these Big Ten games on the road. I mean, they were nightmarish. And you know what? That whole league is a joke. I mean, all these leagues are a joke with the way they have them set up now as far as travel. But they came on gangbusters. And they're dangerous, and Cronin's dangerous. There's a lot of coaching in that. I mean, you think about it. You have what Duke does, what you have Pitino, you have Hurley, you have Self. Those are the 3 coaches in the country who have multiple national titles. You have Izzo, who's won a national title and is considered statistically the best NCAA tournament coach in terms of elevating a team above their number in the history of the NCAA tournament. He does a better job of it than anybody else. So, meaning that in a year there are 3, they will usually play above a 3. A year there are 5, they will play above a 5. His performance over his very long and distinguished career, okay, he's been there forever. He has a better number of elevating his team above their number than any other coach in the country. He is a terrific NCAA tournament coach. You got him in this bracket. You got Cronin in this bracket. This is a terrific coaches bracket with a lot of teams that have won a lot of championships, a lot of storied histories in this bracket. Now, I want to get to the Fields trade today. Hey, getting rid of Fields, picking up anything on the dumb amount of money he got paid, getting him off the roster. And yes, they need to add another quarterback, and they'll add a veteran quarterback. They should give Frank Reich what he wants. If he wants Wentz, give it to him. If he wants Taylor, give him Taylor. Whatever he wants, give it to him. He probably wants Wentz, but if whoever he wants, give it to him. Give you some backup for Geno Smith, who I still don't get. I made a comment last week about the Jets, and it was about next year and how the Mannings would play if Jets had number 1 pick. I didn't have any information about that. I didn't talk to the Mannings or anything. I didn't talk to Arch. I didn't talk to anybody in the family or anybody with Arch Manning or anything else. What I was saying was, if you look at it historically, and I don't even know if the Jets next year, if they get the number 1 pick, would want him. Maybe they want somebody else. I mean, there's considered to be a good quarterback draft next year. Maybe someone else plays better next year. Year to year, it can change. Look, Dan Marino, as his junior year, was the absolute lock number 1 pick. And then look where he wound up going in the senior year because he had a rough senior year. So you never know. But knowing the options that are open to Arch Manning, meaning that he already makes a tremendous amount of money, he could stay in school if he wanted to, and knowing how much – you got to understand that Archie Manning was one of the great quarterback talents ever, and he languished because he could not in the old days get out of New Orleans. And I don't want to say it destroyed his career because he still had a wonderful career, but he never won. And he got banged up a lot, and his great performances went by the boards because he was on a terrible team, on a terrible franchise. And in those days, you couldn't play out there was no free agency. And that stung him. And it obviously led him to be very careful with Peyton, very careful with Eli. He obviously did a brilliant job since both of them won multiple Super Bowls and are 2 of the great players. One's one of the greatest players who ever lived, and the other one is a Hall of Famer. So I think they'll be very careful. Now, what their regard will be of the Jets might depend on what the Jets look like then. So that was an opinion. That wasn't based on any information. I do have some information that just came to me because I bumped into someone that I have a high regard for and that I know knows the situation. And I found out a couple of things that I was very surprised by that I'll share with you. And I'm sure this, the Jets will either deny this or, have a problem with it. There was a lot. First of all, sometime we know how bad Glenn was last year. I mean, look at what he did with the staff. Look at what the staff is now. Look at what the product was last year. I mean, Aaron Glenn had a nightmare. If he had been fired, no one would have blinked an eye. He's still here. Somewhere along the way, Woody Johnson gave Muji the power. It's no longer, if you notice, Aaron Glenn came in. First of all, he wanted to bring in his own GM. Woody was against it. He didn't think the person was experienced enough, and then they went out and got Muji. Okay? So they were going to do this together. But Glenn was clearly, when they started this last year, the voice and the power of the whole thing. And you can see now, if you're paying attention, that has shifted dramatically. Muji's now in charge, and clearly my understanding is Woody made a decision that Muji's in charge. So now Glenn, it's not equal. Muji's the guy and Glenn's the coach, but Muji's kind of making the decisions. And so far, although we don't have anything to back up his performance yet because the big swings haven't happened yet, but he's placed himself so far where you can't really get on him about anything he's done, except Geno Smith, which I don't agree with at all. But the trades he made last year, which set him up for this year, but the proof is gonna be in the pudding. They have to get a lot better and quickly. Now, you also have a situation now where the personnel guy can always turn around and say, "Oh, boy, if I had some coaching," that's always a tough situation. Now, so Muji clearly has become the guy, and if you've noticed, at least I've noticed, that most of the people who follow them and report on them have been very complimentary towards Muji. Muji miracle on a trade, this and that, a lot of positive stuff. Now, they've been subtle moves. They haven't been bad moves. I wouldn't say he's done anything other than Geno Smith that to me looks very suspect. So I'm not attacking him yet. I don't have anything to laud him about because they have to get better and they got to bring a lot better players in here, and the big swings are still to come. And they desperately need a quarterback if they're going to win. But my understanding, a couple things. The Wink Martindale thing got a lot of play. And it was a whole thing where there's always stuff with Wink, okay? Because Wink likes to talk, which we know. Now, it was a pretty much considered a foregone conclusion in football circles that Glenn was going to bring Wink Martindale in. And then he wasn't. Now, Wink came out last week, and there was a lot of reporting and debating on who did what and what did Woody do and this and that. Well, my understanding is that Wink said last week that, hey, it was out of Aaron's hands. And I think that's correct. And everyone assumed that Woody put the kibosh on Wink saying, hey, I paid you all this money. You call the plays. When really, my understanding is it's Muji's decision to not have Martindale here, not Woody's. That it was Muji that put the kibosh on it. Number two, it was Muji who wanted Geno Smith. Not really. Now, I'm not completely sure from what I was told where Aaron stood on this. Was he lukewarm? But my understanding was he wasn't rah-rah on Geno Smith. He was much more interested, from what I was told, in Cousins than he was in Geno. Now, again, I don't know that he was against Geno Smith. I didn't hear that. But I did hear that it was Muji, who's in charge now, who put the kibosh on Wink and said, "You call the defensive signals," which means Wink's out because Wink's not coming in if he doesn't call the defensive signals. And it was Muji who wanted Geno Smith. Now, my understanding also is while these guys have put up a very good front, they're not getting along as well as everybody thinks they are. Is also what I'm hearing, which I'm sure they'll deny, but that's what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing it from a terrific source. Okay. The bottom line is this doesn't mean it does mean that Glenn better put forth a lot better performance or he's gonna get booted out the door and Frank Reich will get named the head coach. I mean, that you can see a mile away because Muji's now in charge. It's not even. Muji's making the decisions. That's number one. Also, I felt that Glenn was very quiet about Geno Smith. I thought that was surprising. Now, as this goes forward, Glenn has gotten very quiet and Muji has gotten better publicity and better publicity. Now, the moves have got to be made. Like I said, I'm not attacking Muji on what he's done so far because really the heavy lifting hasn't been done yet except bringing in Geno Smith, which I am dead set against. I did not like that move at all. Now, he doesn't play yet. So if they bring in another quarterback and the other quarterback starts, well, we don't have anything to discuss. The guy beats Geno Smith out. That should be up to what Frank Reich sees. I mean, Frank Reich's a proven pro. I agree with him being here. He's an adult in the room. He's an accomplished coach. I think he's a step in the right direction. I thought last year their offense was non-NFL. That will change with Frank Reich here. Whose ever move that was, whether that was Muji's or I think knowing now that Muji's in charge, it couldn't have been without his stamp. So I have no problem with that move. Now, I have noticed that there's a lot of confidence being thrown around for Muji right now, and I don't see the compliments yet from this standpoint. Hey, they were an embarrassment last year. They just brought in Geno Smith to salvage their number 2 season and maybe to save their head coach. Where are we? That was what you wanted to do, bring in Geno Smith? I was surprised that didn't get more attack than it did. Now, today, everyone's lauding Fields like it's some genius move. Hey, they got rid of Fields. They flopped late picks. They saved $3 million. Fine. They undid a disaster. But I'll tell you this. If you think Fields, after training camp and the next months that he will spend in Camp Reed, will look like the player he was last year, think again. Because he will never, ever have a uniform on if that's the way he throws the ball in Kansas City. Because you aren't getting out of the locker room throwing a ball like that in Kansas City. Now, they might decide, hey, we're going to use our legs. We're going to use our new running back. We're going to do different things while we don't, if we got to win. And they might know we have to win 3 games. We have to win 4 games. We have to play the first 6 games without our great player. I don't know what's up with him. I don't know if he's going to be ready week 1 or ready week 6. I have no idea. Too early to tell. We'll know later on. But they went out and got a guy. Did it surprise you when they go out and get Field? Yes. Did they give up anything amazing for him? No. Spare change. Jets got him out of here, which to them is a positive. Okay. But right now, the only quarterback they have is Geno Smith. And they got a lot of glossy picks, and they got a lot of work to do, and the only way is up. But now, it's been sold that it's this big tandem, buddy-buddy tandem. I'm hearing it's not so buddy-buddy. And you know what? Here's what I say about it. If Muji's in charge, let him come out and be in charge. Don't hide it. Don't pin everything on Aaron Glenn. If Aaron Glenn's just the coach and he's not making any personnel decisions, let's know that. Let's see where we are right now as we can go forward and put the praise and the blame where it belongs going forward. Then we can find out if there really are any Muji miracles. We'll see you later.